one day I'm reviewing romantic chamber pop, and the next it's progressive metal about sleep disorders and nightmares. I'm sorry, but this is just what you signed up for. I am not going to apologize. Hey, it's Matt O'Leary, and I really didn't think I would review this album. I really thought I'd leave this one alone. I'd leave it to the real metal critics, the hardcore fans. But something about this album, beyond mere nostalgia, brought me back a fourth, a fifth, a sixth time. And I have been known to dabble in prog metal. Haken I love, Mastodon I love, and there's usually one or two other releases that stick with me every year. So let's do it. Let's have a go at Parasomnia, the 16th album from the undisputed kings of prog metal, Dream Theater. I did actually talk about this band recently on the channel when I invited Notes Reviews, and revealed Octavarium as my favorite Dream Theater album. As far as I understand, kind of a left field pick, but I'm kind of a left field Dream Theater fan. You know, I'm like standing out, watching it from afar, squinting through the sun, maybe picking some grass, maybe, chewing on my glove or something. But I actually love a lot of their music, and my relationship with the band goes way back to, 12-year-old Matt, to middle school. The guitarist in my band at the time, the childhood band, would start pretty much every band practice by playing the riff to Erotomania. So that song's just like seared in my memory. Along with so much of the band's music at that time, Octavarium, Train of Thought, Systematic Chaos, these were the first albums I heard by the band and still very much occupy a distinct place in my musical vocabulary and taste. I only went back to the earlier albums later, Images and Words, Metropolis Part 2, and my personal favorite, which is Awake, probably the one I go back to the most. Dream Theater is often criticized as really the poster child of technicality for technicality's sake, for over-the-top, showy, wittily, masturbatory playing. And yeah, I mean, it's true. It's all true. There's a certain silliness to the self-seriousness and the excessiveness of this band. But pair that technicality with incredibly emotive and melodic songwriting, and I'm in. Euphoric moments just come to mind right away when I think about this band's music. And it's really little moments. Like I think about, that backwards tape part in, maybe the second or third minute of the song Misunderstood. Or the chord change at the end of Barstool Warrior. You know it when you hear it. These are just momentous, You simply can't be too cool to appreciate musical moments like that. But to be honest, I haven't given the time of day to any album since Black Clouds and Silver Linings, and it really didn't have much to do with Mangini, I don't think, because he's obviously a really skilled drummer. It was more about me and my own musical journey. And when I tried to jump back on board with The Astonishing, it was pretty underwhelming and somehow even cornier than I remember the band. Even though corniness and cheese is a big draw for me for the band, and we'll get back to that. Of course, fans of the band know this period of 14, 15 years as a Mike Mangini period where he replaced Mike Portnoy, legendary drummer, and with his glorious, long-awaited return to the band and just a hunger for something thick, something meaty, I've dove deep into Parasomnia. First off, what a fantastic concept for a metal album, with each song about a different sleep disturbance, from night terrors to sleep paralysis to sleepwalking. With a name like Dream Theater too, nailed it. But just to be real, true darkness has never been something that this band's been convincingly able to pull off. I think of albums like Systematic Chaos. It's like, come on, guys. The Dark Eternal Night. Come on. James LaBrie, great voice, operatic voice, not a voice that shakes me to my core with terror. And the playing, similarly, was just too classically informed, too beautiful to really be dark. They could throw all the distortion they want on a track like This Dying Soul, and it still comes off as very bright, fun, and zany. So I was pretty skeptical with this album because so many of the songs invite just the most twisted and dark musical choices. Like I think about A Broken Man about PTSD, or like Dead Asleep about a man killing his wife unknowingly in her sleep. Heavy. And yes, they go for heavy in this music. It's super crunchy, super metal inspired, but still comes off as good old Dream Theater, bright, fun, and just playful. The riffs are crushing, but they're pretty straight down the middle of the plate Dream Theater. There's no moment in any song here where I'm like, oh, they've really descended into somewhere dark. If I were a stickler about things like narrative flow and, aesthetic cohesion, then maybe I'd count this against the album, but I don't really mind. Again, this is part of the band's charm for me, the playfulness, the bombast, the cheese. Embrace the cheese, you might say. Going back to The Broken Man, I love the smooth, sinister tension of that chorus that's surrounded by this onslaught of distorted riffage that rains down like artillery, complete with some off-the-wall soloing from Rudess and Petrucci. Their solos take up like 2 minutes in the middle of the song, sequencing through all these different tones and feels like they're pulling outfits out of a dress-up trunk. I also mentioned Dead Asleep, and that's another favorite for me on the album, not outside of the Dream Theater box. Nothing is like going into uncharted territory. But that trio of Rudess and Petrucci and Portnoy is on fire. Myung's bass is totally buried in the mix as always, but if it wasn't, there'd just be too much sonic information. Another album highlight for me is the opening overture. I mean, come on. I love when bands do this. I love the motifs, the melodies coming back throughout the album, and the more I listen to this thing, I keep noticing little subtle ones. It's like, ooh, 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 Easter eggs. And going back to the cheese factor, there's no cheese like a Dream Theater ballad, and Bend the Clock just hits me right in that nostalgic sweet spot. You got Petrucci arpeggios, you got a super moody first verse from Labrie, you got grand piano flourishes and soaring dramatic chord progressions. It's just check, 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 check. Then there's that lovely thing that they like to do where they double Labrie's voice in octaves. Sounds beautiful. And don't forget a Petrucci solo where he jumps the octave. I mean, money. Others have said it, but this album isn't gonna pull in new fans, I don't think. It really is like hitting the common denominator of Dream Theater fans. So if you disliked them before, then just don't bother. But this is a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10 record for me, for Dream Theater, and one I put in the top half of my Dream Theater album ranking. The playing is just crazy, and still so impressive. The writing, pretty memorable, pretty accessible too. The epic is suitably epic. And I even like the album cover, as AI as it looks. I like that they're hearkening back to images and words with the bed, the girl. So yeah, that's Parasomnia, that's Dream Theater. I'm pretty stoked about this album, but I want to hear what you think. So let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and like the video. Super helpful. As always, thank you so much for watching.